validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa, I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. We got us a very, very eventful Friday. You know, so many things have been happening over the past month. We have been trying to cover as many things as we possibly could. I got to tell you guys, there's a lot of stuff going on. We want to touch base on some of the other topics I told you guys about that we normally do Thursday through Sunday. So today we're going to be discussing a topic about do the boyfriends and husbands really do something wrong that make the women refuse to cooperate with men in relationships. So this is going to be one of those very controversial topics that individuals are going to be putting their nine tails in, which I strongly encourage. Special shout out to those of you that are coming to us from Twitch and Twitter. Red Void, Omni81, Danny, Stefan. We really appreciate you guys, Max Opposer, Joe, and Mr. Pibbs, Reese Martinez. We really appreciate you guys. If you got some comments that you guys want to throw in, you can click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera. It brings you onto the show in real time. Got to be over the age of 18 to get up on the show, though. And anyone else that wants to be a part of the podcast, you can throw your comments in the comment section. Please keep your comments live or in the comment section reasonably appropriate, because if they start getting too inappropriate, then we'll have to do something about it. However, this is an open-minded, open forum, open mic podcast, so you guys can say pretty much whatever you want to say. Just kind of keep it appropriate is all I ask. I don't have to agree with you for your comments to be on the podcast. If you make a valid point, I will put it up here on the screen for you. So just note that, you can disagree and we can disagree. I like to make it make sense. So if I can make it make sense for you, or if you can make it make sense for me, then by all means, I can respect your point of view. However, if your point of view doesn't make sense, then I will point out the lack of understanding that I have with your logic. Now, doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that I don't understand where you're coming from with this. So today we're going to be dealing with, let's see, diving into one of the trickiest questions that we have had on this podcast for a while, which is, do husbands really do something wrong that make their wives refuse to cooperate? So let's find out exactly what information. This information is going to be provided to you guys from primarily a man's perspective. So ladies, if you disagree with what I have to say, by all means enlighten me, because you probably know why women feel like they should not cooperate with their boyfriends and husbands in relationships more than men understand why women are not trying to cooperate with their boyfriends and husbands in relationships. But I do understand from a man's perspective that men do as much as possible that they are aware of, because again, women are selfish and men are inconsiderate. So men do not think that they should have done that. They did not consider that or take that under advisement to perform that. And more often than not, women are focusing on number one. So there are some flaws from both sides of the fence. It's not exactly the same. Women do not treat men better than men treat women. But when partners in a relationship start walking away from the relationship, shutting down in a relationship, or the communication gap starts to get too large in a relationship, it is due to both parties not participating in the proper performance of reciprocation. Because one party can put up the effort, another party cannot reciprocate. The lack of communication will cause the first party to stop putting up, and then the second party start to feel abandoned after the first party already feels abandoned. They still have no communication involved, leading to the second party doing even less than what they were doing before, where the first party ends up getting tired of doing it. And usually one of them will either walk away or cheat if they don't decide to work on the situation. So it is both sides of the fence kind of situation, but and you can't really say that one side, like you can't say that the women do it first and then it's the men, or the men do it first and then it's the women. It really circumstantial and depends on the relationship. But one of the issues that we have understood is that when men get into relationships with women, it is more common for those relationships that have the clash of authority, that those types of women are not cooperating with their boyfriends and husbands, but expect to be wife material. And we're trying to figure out, why do the women do that? So we've all heard of it, that that moment when your wife is just shutting down and refusing to cooperate, scenarios where they just cross their arms and stomp their feet and they're refusing to do anything else. We've also experienced those situations with the heavily toxic silent treatment, where they don't acknowledge your existence until you discover what is wrong, without them ever telling you that something is wrong or what is wrong. We've also experienced those scenarios where when we do realize that there is a problem, but we don't know what the problem is, when men ask what the problem is, the women come back and tell me nothing. It's nothing. Ladies, this doesn't help your relationship. If you have problems in your relationship, it is more important for you to vocalize them than it is for you to suppress your feelings and expect your man to be a genie or a psychic and guess the problem. But from the understanding that the man is observing his girlfriend or wife is shutting down in a relationship without the understanding as to why, the men are feeling a lot more frustration and being left out of the relationship, wondering what they did wrong. And while they're trying to figure out how to get her to get back on board in a relationship, they're trying to figure out how to fix whatever went wrong, which forces the man to go above and beyond the reasonable, reciprocal calls of duty in a relationship to satisfy whatever discontent that has manifested in the relationship. I have had some individuals that I've talked to about their relationships in recent times where their expectations must be reasonable. When I was talking to a man about this, as a matter of fact, because he was asking me about his girlfriend asking him if it was okay if she brought her gay best friend with her out on a girls' night out kind of situation. And he talked to me about it, and he didn't really feel comfortable about it because it's a man, and some men do pretend like they're gay just so that they can get close to the women. And I told him, I said, well, let's be honest, bro. Whether he's gay or straight, the fact is that you've got to trust her to behave more so than you have to trust him not to tempt her. And whatever standards that you set for her with her your ability to trust her to behave, that is going to be the standard that you will have to adhere to. So if you are not okay with her going out on a date with a guy that she perceives as not even a threat to your relationship uh uh in any way, shape, or form, because she has no interest in him and she believes he has no interest in her, uh, and you set the standard that she cannot socialize with him because of your insecurity, you have to understand that, uniformly speaking, that you will not be able to socialize with any females in life because that is the standard that you set. Uh, but if you're going to give her a little bit of wiggle room to be, or a lot of bit of wiggle room to be responsible about representing her relationship with you, and actually being faithful and loyal and being able to interact with the opposite sex appropriately, then, giving her that ability to do so gives you the equal right to be able to do the same. So she should not be overbearing on your ability to socialize in an appropriate fashion with the opposite sex, because if you trust her to behave, she should be able to trust you to do the same. Um, there's this old statement that goes as far back as saying that you should only be able to trust your significant other to do what you would have done in that exact same situation. So, you put your partner in a room where they could be compromised, the scenario in your head. We've seen that trend on TikTok, actually, because TikTok is still active in its probationary period, where the girls was like, well, hypothetically, if this happened, what would you do? Well, those hypotheticals trap questions, because it literally puts the man in an argument with his girlfriend. But the fact is that if you put yourself in those shoes of that particular hypothetical, the response is supposed to be an appropriate response, or the expected response. Now, clearly, the women that ask this question are not expecting the response that they get from their man, but unfortunately, their expectations are not their behavior patterns. So we have to understand that there isn't a uniform dynamic where she who is asking the question would have behaved the exact same way the answer was expected, but the man gave a left field answer. For example, uh, would you cheat on your partner if your partner was in a coma? I don't know why they would ask a question like this, but let's throw that hypothetical out there. I mean, specifically, if you were the partner in a coma, would you want your partner to cheat on you? Most people would say no. Some people would say, live your life. How long have I been in a coma? 3, 5, 7 years. Live your life. It's equivalent to if you were the kind of person in a relationship where you were incarcerated and you were doing a 5 or 10 year stretch. Would you want your partner to wait for you monogamously, or would you expect your partner to go ahead and continue living life because you made mistakes, and your life is going to be put on hold until your release? But that does not mean that your partner, who did nothing wrong, should put their life on hold until your release. There is that mentality, but then there's also that mentality of, if I'm in a coma, I didn't do this. I didn't deserve to be in this particular situation, hopefully. And likewise, I would expect that my partner would be faithful and wait till I come out of a coma. That is a selfish expectation, but you have to remember that that particular mentality is the type of mentality of a person that says, well, if my partner was in a coma, I would wait for them to come out of a coma. Now, that's a bold statement to say when your partner's not in a coma, because the first 6 months, maybe the first 2 or 3 years, you might actually do that. But we are still human, men and women alike. Something will happen a few months in or a few years in, maybe a decade in, where your partner's been in a coma for so long that you have forgotten what it's like for your partner to be in your life. Once that happens, your ability to move on accidentally, I would say, where you can formulate an emotional connection with somebody that is existing in your presence, you end up in a position with doing what you never thought that you would do, which is cheating on your comatose partner. These things happen. So when we're sitting here talking about having the ability to understand why our partner behaves the way he or she is behaving, we have to have our expectations as reasonable expectations, that I am not going to expect you to do anything that I would not do, and I am not expecting you to not do anything that I would do, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. Basically, the standards that I would hold for myself in this relationship should be the standards that I hold for you in this relationship. Now, my wants, needs, and desires are different from your wants, needs, and desires. But when we start talking about decision-making processes in social environments, the outcome is still the same. We do have that understanding, though, that when we start talking about the conversation of cheating, we have the females that have the emotional cheating, where they can formulate bonds with men and find their emotional fulfillment, where men cannot do that. And men are not going to be fulfilled by forming bonds with women. They usually are more fulfilled with physical connection. And so those two dynamics are a little bit different, but that's only when you're talking about cheating. Every other decision in life, as far as respecting your partner, respecting yourself, respecting your relationship, that dynamic is universal. There isn't a scenario where when it comes to a woman, it's supposed to be this way, and when it comes to a man, it's supposed to be that way. It's not the thing. I have said in the past that in a relationship that a man is not supposed to talk bad about his wife, and a woman is not supposed to talk bad about her husband. So if the man speaks and the woman disagrees, she remains silent, but vice versa. If the woman speaks and the man disagrees, he remains silent. So it's not a situation where it's this patriarchal expectation where the women are supposed to 100% bow down to the man and never have a say in things. It's just that you do not make your partner look bad, because your partner represents you and your relationship and your decision-making skills. And that it doesn't matter if you're a man or a female. She represents him, he represents her. So you are not supposed to devalue your position by devaluing the people on your team. You are not supposed to devalue your team by devaluing the members of your team. You notice this in some of the more wealthy families, where instead of them being ashamed of in public eye certain family members that do things that the other individuals would prefer they didn't do, instead of them giving press conferences and expressing reckless and immature behavior, instead they make that family member disappear. It's just out of the country for a while until the heat dies down, boarding schools, stuff to that effect, military enlistments. By the time they come back, you forgot who that person was. The reputation of the family is secured, and the reckless behavior of the black sheep of the family is no longer an issue. They don't speak bad about the family in the public eye. They just micromanage the chaos in the family behind closed doors. That is what the bottom 99% needs to start remembering to do, instead of us having conflictual moments in the streets, arguing with your husband or your boyfriend at a Target or a Walmart or a Waffle House. Save that conversation for behind closed doors. And instead of having arguments and fights in front of the children, save those discussions for when you guys send the kids to school or let the kids spend a night by their friend's house. And I say that because if you're in the house and the children are in the house and your conversation starts off a bit peaceful, the fact is that at some point emotions will escalate. And as your emotions escalate, so does your voice, the pitch of your voice, which also means that eventually you guys are going to be heard by the neighbors, by the people down the street, which clearly means that the children in the house will hear you guys arguing. So even though they're not in the room with you, where you can consciously recognize that the children know that there's a problem, that your voice is echoing off the wall, so the children in the other room can hear what you're saying, which means that there's still a problem that's recognized by the kids. So I say, you got to find time, send the kids to go spend nights by their friend's house, allow this discussion to occur while the kids are at school, so that if you guys have to yell at each other, or I prefer that you don't, but if you do feel like you have to yell at each other in order to get your points across, you can do it while the kids aren't home listening to it. It's more appropriate to have your arguments before 8 p.m. so that the neighbors aren't calling the police for noise pollution. And you don't want to break stuff in the house because you don't want the neighbors to call the police for domestic disturbances, so that you don't have to deal with your husband getting attacked by the police because you guys were having a heated discussion. And I say husband specifically because society and Western cultures usually blame the man for all disruptions in the house, even if it's not the man's fault. And the man will be treated harshly by law enforcement because he's a man, not because he did anything wrong. Where the women who just were overly emotional in the situation now have to deal with the loss of their boyfriend or their husband because law enforcement overreacted. So I'm just going to say, don't throw things. If you want to throw things, ladies, I'm going to be honest with you. This and That has some throw pillows. That is the most appropriate thing to do, because throw pillows don't break stuff unless you're throwing it at chandeliers and lamps. And if you hit your partner with a throw pillow, it's not going to leave a mark. I mean, unless you put a sack of quarters in it. But we're not trying to go down that route. Back to the main discussion. We have to put ourselves in a position where you recognize that your partner has stopped functioning in a relationship. And this is the moment where you have to stop to think that there might be something that you are doing in a relationship that's causing your partner to shut down. Or is it just your partner with your over realistic expectations? Because we do have people that are in positive, healthy relationships that are inconsiderate or inconsistent in their relationship, and their lack of action causes disruption in the relationship. That lack of action, where you forgot a birthday, you forgot to acknowledge a person's existence, you forgot to appraise the person, giving them the recognition that he or she may deserve, that person may feel unappreciated and or abandoned, which may lead to a devalued feeling in the relationship. And this is on both sides of the fence. But then there's also the other side, where it's not something that you're doing. There's just unrealistic expectations for behavior, and those unrealistic expectations are not able to be met. And that's actually a two-sided scenario too. I just want to point that out. Unrealistic expectations is going to be a two-sided position, because you have some men and women alike that have certain expectations based on the lifestyle that they live. When they get into a committed relationship where the term settled down, you have to understand the excitement also settles down. Then you also have the female side of unrealistic expectations, which isn't always solely the problem of the woman, because men typically overachieve. And the problem with that is that if you set the par and you can't ride that 100 for the rest of the relationship, she's getting 100 and feeling like that's step one. And she's waiting on you to upgrade to step 2. And you can't upgrade to step 3 because you didn't start at the bottom. You started at max. And unfortunately, when you start at max, you end up burning out and you start going down. So you went from being 100, you started going down to 50. You went from being on level 1 with her to being in -5. She's wondering why you're not doing as much as you used to do. And that's because you couldn't keep that up. You setting the par as what you're capable of doing in this relationship on a consistent basis sets a more reasonable level of expectations from your partner. This works for men and women alike. If you can't cook, ladies, don't pretend like you can cook. Make sure that your boyfriend or your husband knows that you can't cook. Y'all take cooking classes together. Cooking with Kaya. Come on now. Y'all can find ways to formulate a bond and you can learn how to cook. And because you don't really know how to cook, you're not expected to cook all the time. He can cook some of the time, you can cook some of the time, y'all can work that scenario out. But I mean, if you pretend like you're cooking and you order some like buffet from Olive Garden situation and he thinks that you made that yourself, putting on that facade could lead to him expecting you to cook for him like that on a regular basis, and it turns out that you can't. That also works with those people who pretend like they can cook for their kids and they want to do the bake sale, and instead of them baking the food for the kids, they go to the bakery and buy a bunch of stuff and give it to the kids so that the kids can take it to the school, stuff like that. It's like, if you can't do it, don't set that par that I can. That men, that's also a scenario that you guys have to remember, is that, you know, always wanting to offer to compensate the woman for every little thing. You want to pay for this and pay for that and tip big. And guys, if you can't afford it, don't start your relationship on that level, because when you're doing that, she's expecting you to be able to maintain that standard of spending. Ladies do have to recognize that if you're looking at a man that is frugal, cheap, that he's going to be more fiscally responsible than an individual that is wasteful, spending a bunch of money on a lot of stuff. You look at the dollar amount of that dinner date and you think to yourself, oh man, he cares about me because he spent so much money. But you also think about how he's throwing away a few $100s a night that could have been a couple $1,000s a month, that could have been almost 15-20 grand a year, where he could have been making $2,000 to $5,000 a year worth of interest back on that if he would have invested that in a appropriate stock investment, where he then could have been taking that $2,000 to $5,000 of dividends from the stock investment and waste that on you and take his primary income, cover it, the primary bills, and take the rest of it and invest it in a stock, where that stock can continue to increase in value, where the distribution of dividends could become larger, where you end up having more money than you need, which gives you the ability to have more disposable income. Think about that. But when you consider the fact that sometimes it could be something that you're doing, but it also could be something that you're not doing that's contributing to this behavior. Because when you're not doing something like forgetting anniversaries, forgetting special occasions, forgetting somebody's favorite food, forgetting somebody's allergies, stuff like that could make your partner feel like you don't care about their basic needs. You know, it's not just forgetting their birthday or not being able to afford to buy them a gift for the holidays or something, because Valentine's Day is next week. Next week today, or no, next week yesterday. So today's Friday, next week, Thursday is Valentine's Day. If you can't afford Valentine's Day because you've been doing expensive everything for the last couple years of Valentine's Day, and this year you want to kind of get your money right, she's probably going to feel unappreciated on Valentine's Day because you're not doing what you normally do for Valentine's Day. So the lack of consistency is going to cause rifts in your relationship. But if you were more reasonable about the event that you set it up for, the Valentine's Day scenario, then it would be something that would be more easily maintainable. Even if you increase in wealth and increase in financial status, the little things in life in a relationship makes more of a difference than the big things. So when it comes to these relationships, we often focus on those big ticket items. We always pay attention to those romantic getaways, those expensive surprise gifts, those extremely grand gestures. But what about the everyday interactions that we don't pay attention to on a regular basis? The little things that can make or break our connections with our partners. It's easy to overlook the subtle dynamics, but they can have a disproportionate impact on our relationships. For example, making your partner breakfast in the morning. If you eat breakfast and you make enough for both of you, and then you put your partner's breakfast aside, when they get up, there's food there. You might feel unappreciated because they don't eat breakfast for the first 2 or 3 hours after they wake up, but you eat breakfast immediately after you wake up. Likewise, you might have a partner that eats dinner right before they go to bed, where you eat dinner several hours before you go to bed. You guys have to understand the dynamic. if you eat right before you go to sleep, you're not necessarily hungry the first couple of hours after you wake up. But if you were awake a few hours before you went to bed, you're probably more than likely hungry when you wake up first thing in the morning. So consideration is the key. If your partner makes you breakfast and you're not hungry, pack the breakfast and take it with you to work. Eat it at work. Uh, Eat it anyway. If you're if it's not something that you could take to work, it's gonna get cold. Eat it anyway. Sit there and eat it even though you're not hungry. You eat it because your partner made it, because that validates their efforts and shows appreciation and consideration to their efforts to make you something to eat while you are sleeping. Um, Ladies, this is another thing. Like, guys have work uniforms. Most of us blue collar workers have work uniforms, and the fact is that something as simple as making sure that his uniform is where he can find it, because he didn't rolled out of bed late and missed the alarm clock, and now he's got to rush to get ready for work. And the longer he spends looking for his uniform, the later he gets for work, and the more stressed out he gets. You could be the kind of person that when before he can oversleep on the alarm, you're putting forth the effort to wake him up so that he gets up on time. Also making sure that he doesn't stay awake too late, at least not because of you, because if he's up all night playing video games, that's on him. But if you're not keeping him up to watch a movie or something to that effect, let him go to sleep early. He gets enough rest where he can wake up naturally without an alarm clock. But if the alarm clock goes off and he doesn't get up, you wake him up. That shows him that you value his time to get out there and go to work. Now, I'm not going to say that men shouldn't do the same thing for their wives, because we got some hardworking women out here today. Got a lot of them out there that are like Fortune 500 women. They're like the strongest backbones in the country since the war. And I gotta tell you that sometimes the husband might have to get up first, make breakfast for the wife, wake the wife up, get the wife's uniform ready for work so that she can eat and get to work on time. It's the same dynamic. There is no difference with the expectations of the extreme egalitarian, the egalitarian expectations from the feminist woman dictate that the way that she behaves as a masculine man is the way that he should behave as a masculine man. And I say it that way because the modern day woman abandons the feminine roles. So nobody is required to look out for the masculine role. So now you have two masculine roles in the relationship, and only one of those masculine roles are allowed to be feminine roles to receive feminine benefit, but then switch back to the masculine role and battle for authority. And that's another reason we've talked about this a couple times this week on the show, where the women gauge their desire for men based on or the value that a woman gauges herself to a man is based on what she values from a man. And we've talked about that plenty of times on the show, where that is actually a big conflict of interest, because if you want a man that's financially successful, highly intelligent, and physically capable, you become financially successful, highly intelligent, and physically capable. You cannot say that you are valuable to a man because he's not looking for that. That's what you're looking for. You're meeting your own expectations for a man. He got to exceed your capabilities to be accepted by you as a man, but his expectations of a woman are going to be your willingness and capability to fulfill feminine roles. And some women are not willing to fill those roles. So that's where the conflict of interest comes in at. But the expectations of reciprocation beyond the gender role expectations is still able to be performed in an egalitarian manner, because stay-at-home boyfriends and stay-at-home husbands are a thing. Stay-at-home dads are a thing. It has been statistically proven that men are better at raising children than women are, not because the men are more nurturing than the women. It is because the women bring the nurturing aspect of the child upbringing, but the men bring the logic and reason to the children that is more universal in dynamics. You get a child that you are able to rationalize with and reason with, to be more cooperative than a child that you have psychologically or emotionally manipulated. Do it so that I don't cry, or do it because I say so. when you're saying to do something that makes absolutely no sense, these dynamics, they come from a sometimes hypocritical or a double standard position. Do as I say, not as I do, which is a lot of the different designs that uh, my generation and a generation before us had to experience growing up. And the defiance of the children is that at a certain age, and some children start manifesting this earlier than others, when they cannot rationalize your instructions versus your expectations and your behavior patterns, where you expect them to do certain things that you're not willing to do. You're expecting them to do things that you're not capable of doing. And the problem comes in, well, why do I have to do it and you don't? Why can you do it and I can't? And this lack of uniformity is what sends the children into a rebellion, which causes parents to have problems with maintaining control over the children as they get into their teenage years, when they start rationalizing things. And that's one of the reasons why they say that men are better at it than women, because the men are going to rationalize it. We're going to compromise. If you want X, Y, and Z, I need you to do A, B, and C for me. You're getting what you want out of me, and I'm getting what I want out of you. It's a reasonable negotiation. Logic dictates that if you don't follow my instructions in this particular situation, the consequences outweighs your agenda's objectives. And if you don't want to receive those consequences, you don't want to perform that action. I'm not going to say do it because I say so. I'm just saying do it because it will benefit your objectives, and you would probably receive more of my support if you followed my lead with your objectives. And that allows you to not only get what you're looking for out of the situation within reason, I'm able to maintain my position as an authority figure as well as your support in that exact same situation. This type of logic behavior does not come from a lot of the mothers. There are some that do that and do it very well, though, but there's not a lot of them that do it that way. Because again, that particular type of behavior works with husbands. So rationalizing and negotiating with your man, as opposed to dangling sex over his head as a tool to get him to do what you want, or dangling the marriage over his head. Well, you marry me and I'll do X, Y, and Z. Those are not ways to reasonably negotiate with your man. These egalitarian women that are alpha boss ladies, you ladies are able to say, well, I can cook and clean on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the rest of the week is yours. I'll do I got to work and you got to work too. So, I'll do it some days out of the week and you do it other days out of the week. That is a type of logic and a reason. I'll make your favorite meal on Wednesdays. That means that you got to bring your behind home on Wednesdays. If you don't come home on Wednesday and dinner is made and dinner is eaten, you miss out on your favorite meal. Logic dictates that if you want your favorite meal and your favorite meal is on Wednesday, you tell your boss you can't work late. It's Wednesday. She's making my favorite meal. That is all that it takes for you to bring your behind home. So logic and reason works better with men. It does not work as well with women. And I can't really get into why logic and reason doesn't work well with women, because I'm not here for like one of those red pill trying to make it seem like women are idiots things, because women are very smart and very driven and very dedicated, but they're also more selfish. Men are hard workers and they are goal driven, but they are also very inconsiderate. They don't take into consideration you. Women don't care about him. That is not the same. The outcome is the same, but the motivation is not the same. See what I'm saying? He cares about her, but he forgets to do things for her. She cares about herself and does not care to do things for him. In that same type of relationship, both partners would say that the other person is leaving them out. And this is going to be one of those common misunderstandings and behavior patterns that might lead to frustration or lack of cooperation from our wives in our relationships. One of the other things is the assumption that they'll always be understanding and patient. That's not true. Neither men nor women are understanding and patient on a regular basis. We are understanding and patient at the beginning of the relationship. We are understanding and patient some of the time when we don't already have large quantities of stressors on our plate. Misdirected rage will have us pissed off about other things going on in our life. And then when a problem comes up with our partner, we can sometimes lash out on our partners, which isn't intentional. But that also means that we put ourselves in a position where we say and do things that we don't intend on saying and doing, but we are unable to take that back because I'm sorry does not fix everything. I'm sorry fixes spilled milk. I'm sorry fixes I dropped the cup on the floor. But I'm sorry does not fix throwing your late mother's urn across the room and breaking it on the wall, and now the ashes are all over the floor and you have to vacuum it up and throw the vacuum into the trash. That's you can't fix that with an I'm sorry. I'm sorry doesn't fix taking a baseball bat to your boyfriend's car because you thought that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you come to find out that he had lent his car to his friend because his friend's car was broken, and now you're vandalizing your boyfriend's car and spray painting it and keying it up. I'm sorry doesn't fix that. So there's certain things that you cannot say and cannot do in a relationship, regardless of how you feel, because you can't take that back. You have to be able to recognize that once that bell has been rung, once the deal is done, you have to be able to understand that you have to put yourself in a more positive communication setting in order to relay your discontent in the relationship before acting irrational, because irrational behavior is unrecognizable and unmendable in most situations. Because while a man can say or a woman can say that I forgive you, you also have to understand that they don't forgive you. They're still upset with you. They're still frustrated with you. They just let it go. Now, what that's going to lead to is down the line, you guys are going to have a similar experience. And when you have that similar experience, one of you is going to bring up old stuff that the other one thought had been buried. It hasn't. So remember, we forget that our partners have their own struggles, their own stressors, and their own limitations. So when we take them for granted, they start to feel like they're shouldering the burden of the relationship by themselves. And look, ladies feel the same way when the women are in a relationship where they're the stay-at-home mom and they've got to cook, clean, take care of the kids. And the effort that is taken to have the whole house clean before the boyfriend or husband gets home is a lot of stress on that person's plate. And for you to come home and track mud through the house and throw your clothes everywhere and not aid her in taking care of the kids to give her a little bit of a break so that she can get some rest could lead her to feel overwhelmed in the relationship where she feels like you're not helping her with the baby that you help her create. Some women will feel like they're completely alone in a relationship because when you come home from work, you're not contributing to her ability to take time out in life. Now, I understand that that's going to be a twin dynamic because if a man just worked a full-time job, he's exhausted, he's going to come back to the house, and the first thing he's going to want to do is quote unquote rest. There is a heightened responsibility on the men that if you do have a stay-at-home girlfriend or stay-at-home wife, you probably want to tag her out, let her take a nap, and then when she wakes up, she can take over and you can take a nap. You guys have a kid together. You guys have to work out a way where one or both of you can work and one or both of you can be at the house with the kids so that the child has one or both of you all of the time, or as much as the child may need you. Because the more often you put your child in the hands of somebody else, the more often you risk something happening to your child that you don't want to have happen. And more often than not, even if nothing bad happens to the child can form a stronger bond and a stronger connection to someone else because that person is more of a dominant figure in the child's life than you are. So you have to also take that into consideration as well. Another common pitfall is our tendency to dominate conversations, not listening actively or steamrolling over their opinions. Now, you have this problem where when you guys start having a breakdown in communication where you're both talking at the same time, it is important for one of you to shut up. Now, red pill podcasts are going to say that the lady should be the one to do that. But I'm going to say that the bigger person, regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, the one that is more emotionally mature, needs to just recognize that the other person is more emotionally unstable in a situation and needs to get whatever it is on their chest off of their chest. Stop talking, listen to what they have to say clearly. And then after they've gotten everything off of their chest, no matter how many hours it takes for them to get everything off of their chest, you work on their problem first. Once you have addressed all of their issues and concerns, you have mapped out a solution for all of their issues and concerns, they should no longer have any gripes. Now that you are going second as the emotionally intelligent person in this discussion, you are now able to map out all of the problems that you have in this scenario, where you now have the ability to try to cooperate or get cooperation from your partner to navigate how you guys will rectify all of your problems and concerns and issues. This will give you the ability to get their undivided attention, because if you have dedicated yourself to try to fix all of their concerns, where they should no longer have concerns going forward, you now need them to map out how they are going to work on your concerns. Because egalitarian relationships, even though the feminist model is not uniform, the egalitarian expectations, when beneficial, require both parties to treat each other the same way. And then feminism throws the wrench into egalitarianism, where she's supposed to receive because she's a female. It's not the case. If you're going to be egalitarian, you're going to be egalitarian all the time, which means that you reciprocate. So if one person in a relationship stops talking, listens to the other person, that person that got everything out now needs to shut it down and listen to the first person, and try to work out everybody's issues. Because and then reviewing this on a regular basis, whether it's bi-weekly, monthly, seasonally, you guys got to review your concerns. It's probably a better idea to write down all of their complaints as they're complaining about it. Write down all of their complaints and be appropriate about writing down their complaints. Don't try to diminish or devalue their complaint by sarcastically writing it in a messed up manner. Be deliberate about writing down exactly what their problems are, then try to come up with a solution for those problems. Then write down your problems as well, and then you guys work out a solution for those problems. I talked to you guys about a dating contract, 6 months ago, I think, and it's almost the same thing. If you write down all of your problems and you guys vow to make sure that you guys are going to capitalize, or not capitalize, but work together on eliminating these issues out of the relationship, you should be able to revisit that list once a month, once a season, bi-weekly, and be able to confirm that both sides of the relationship agree that the needs of everybody, all of the needs on this list, are being met. In doing so, you remove a lot of the discontent in the relationship, and it helps you guys with reducing the quantity of arguments that you have in the relationship. If you guys are writing down all of the concerns that you have in your relationship, you also have that opportunity where, if new concerns arise, you are able to document those concerns and cross those bridges, where individuals will be able to say, okay, I understand, and start trying to work on it right away, which actually eliminates future arguments, or at least the catastrophic arguments that happen in the relationship. Now, we might think that we're being helpful when we are not listening actively or steamrolling over our partner to try to take control of the conversation and work it to a close. But in reality, we're disenfranchising our partners by making them feel like their voice doesn't matter. So we don't want to dominate the conversation. We don't want to control the scenario, because on both sides of the fence, whoever is directing the conversation will make the other person who is being directed feel like their opinion doesn't matter. Especially if they're following your direction and not getting all of their points across, the conversation gets resolved and you still have issues that wasn't mentioned in the original conversation, which makes you have to start up a new conversation. And then you're going to start being treated like a nag because you keep starting up new complaints. because the first time you had a complaint, you couldn't get all your complaints out. This is an issue. So let's not forget the classic mistake of not showing emotional support. We think, and a lot of us might do this on both sides of the fence, that we're being strong by not acting with empathy towards emotional scenarios. But in reality, we're leaving our partners feeling isolated and unheard. Men have a big issue with this because men are taught from small that boys don't cry, men don't cry. So we're supposed to swallow our pride. We're supposed to swallow our pain. And then because we can't internalize it, we can't internalize sadness because that's portrayed as being weak. We have to externalize it as anger, which leads to aggressive male posturing, because that man is hurt or sad or depressed for whatever reason. Now, this issue is hard to address, but a man who is emotionally absent in a emotionally sad or devastating scenario is a man's way of reflecting his acknowledgement of the fact that this is supposed to be a sad moment, but he is not allowed to be sad. Now, women are not going to understand that some men, like a man can go to a funeral and not cry. She's crying all over the place, makeup all over your Italian hand-stitched suit, and she's not understanding why you're not reciprocating the gestures. It takes a lot for an overly masculine man or a reasonably masculine man to be able to burst out into tears. So when that does happen, he's under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. But more often than not, men suppress this. In modern era, we have a lot of men that are not only suppressing it, but then they're projecting it onto their video game skills. So the more frustrated and sad and depressed that they are, the more gaming they do. So you might find that they go from playing a couple of hours a day to being on there like 10 hours a day, like 5 days a week, and you're wondering what's happening. He's got something going on and he's not talking to you about it. And unfortunately, because men feel more comfortable with talking about their issues while in the midst of another activity, in order for you to really figure out what's going on with him, you're probably going to have to play the activity or perform the activity with him in order for him to tell you what's really going on. And not a lot of women understand that in order for you to get into the mind of a man while a man is going through some things, you're probably going to have to put yourself into the activity with the man so that you can learn what's going on with the man. So that is a dynamic that not a lot of women have ever tried. A lot of very few women ask a man what's wrong. Very few women actually try to get in there and work through what is going on with the man with him. And then we also have some women that don't know that devaluing a man's hobbies and devaluing a man's personal interests actually makes a man feel less comfortable with telling her about more sensitive topics. So his train collection, his gaming thing, his whatever skateboard, whatever he's got going on, whatever he does for self gratification. If you devalue that in him, then he's not going to feel comfortable with being able to open up and confide in you. And that's when he will have a problem. You will not know anything about it. His behavior changes. You're going to blame yourself. It's got nothing to do with you, but he's not going to let you in because you've already devalued him once before. So you've got to make sure that the same way you expect him to accept you 100% of the way for who you are, flaws and all, you have to do the same thing for your boyfriend and your husband, because not everybody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. They need the opportunity to redeem themselves without judgment of past actions. And this comes from both sides of the fence. But what about when we fail to acknowledge and validate our partner's emotions? We might think we're being logical, but in reality, we're dismissing their feelings and making them feel like they're not being seen or heard. Men need validation just as much, if not more, than women. it is important for a woman to remember that she validates her man, and validating your man is like validating parking. Somebody has to acknowledge the fact that you parked your car there in order for you to not have to pay the toll. Validating your man requires you to be able to acknowledge when he does do things correctly, when he's not making mistakes, acknowledging the fact that he is still putting in effort even after he feels defeated, recognizing the strength that it takes to keep pushing through in a situation that seems like your efforts are fruitless. You know, being able to try and fail and continue to try again requires acknowledgement that he's not a quitter. So recognizing, ladies, when things go wrong, you ladies are quick to tell a man when he's making a mistake, when he's not doing right, when he's not doing enough. But recognizing the fact that he's doing too much sometimes, where he's trying too hard, and acknowledge the fact that he's trying too hard, and let him know that it is okay for him to dial it back some, that you won't be disappointed in him if he dials it back some. Because again, ladies, you want this man that's the final product, and you want this man that is going to be the protector and the provider. And your responsibility for your provider, for your walking ATM machine, is to make sure that it doesn't burn out. Because if it burns out, the money stops. If it burns out, the protection stops. If it burns out, all of the qualities of that person that you're looking for is going to disappear in that person until that person rejuvenates themselves and is able to get back out there and be their former self. And this happens on both sides of the fence, which is the reason why some relationships struggle when there is a large quantity of clinical depression involved, because while an individual falls into a depression, they are not their original self. They are not able to perform and function in their normal individual lives. It negatively impacts their work life. So you can clearly understand that when you start getting into a relationship, that personalized individual clinical depression is not going to be well in a partnership, because you're going to isolate yourself, and your partner is going to blame themselves when it's not them. And they don't understand clinical depression if they've never experienced it. And they don't know how to be supportive with ongoing sadness that they're not the cause of. So you have to be able to recognize that if you can come out of your shell every now and again, you have to validate the fact that they're still trying, even though they don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? That is very important. If you're just not feeling good because you're not feeling good, you're ignoring him. It ain't him. You're not feeling good. And you got to make sure that they understand that. And then when you're feeling better, you have to go back over there and show them the appreciation that they put in so much effort into you when you were feeling bad. And this is an expectation on both sides of the fence. This isn't just a gender role or a social expectation. This is how mutual respect amongst people occur, because this actually applies with your kids. This applies with your parents. This applies with your sisters and brothers. This applies with your best friends. This is not just your romantic partners. This type of behavior that I'm talking about today is stuff that you can use inside of your entire social structure and maintain more uniformity and more neutrality and reciprocation, because everybody has a shitty day. It's not just men, not just women, not just adults, not just kids, not just your siblings. Everybody has a shitty day. And sometimes people have shitty months. And 30 days is a long time to be in a shitty situation. But you have to understand that once you crawl out of that, even if you crawl out of that for a few days and you're about to crawl back into it, that few days that you're not in it, you got to go to them. You got to let them know, hey, I appreciate you for trying to help me. I know I've been in a bad mood for a while. I'm going through some things. I appreciate you sticking with me. And if I haven't shown it, I value your existence. I value your presence. And it definitely means the world to me that you're here with me. These kinds of things have to be said to them, letting them know that you value them, you appreciate them, being able to stop out of your day, no matter how emotionally distant you feel, to be able to go to that person and give them a hug and say, thank you for what you've been doing so far. Acknowledge their existence, because that is something that will bring a lot more compassion to your relationships. And this isn't just your romantic relationships, your social relationships as well. So we also have uh, these times when we take our partners for granted, assuming that they'll always be there to pick up the slack. Now, I've had this conversation with friends of mine, as a matter of fact, when we're in situations where they continuously make mistakes and they just shrug it off, and I got to come and pick up the pieces. And I ask them, well, why did you make that mistake? Why did you make that mistake and then leave it like that? Not just the fact that you made the mistake, you left it like that. And the response is, well, I thought you were gonna. No, if I catch it before you do, then I'm supposed to try to rectify the situation. But if you realize that you made a mistake, you're supposed to try to rectify the situation. That's first person accountability. You're not supposed to expect me to fix what you did or what you didn't do. Because in situations where I failed to pick up your slack, we both failed. You knew it went south and I didn't catch it. And we are both suffering now as a result. You're not supposed to ever be in a situation where you're expecting your partner, your friend, your family member to pick up your slack. If they can pick up the slack and they choose to, they will. But it should never be an expectation for them to pick up your slack. So ladies, when you decide that y'all want to go shopping, fine. He can take you out there, but don't expect him to pay for stuff. You wanted to go shopping. He didn't offer to take you and spend his money on you. You said you wanted to go shopping. So if you want to go shopping, that's fine. Go shopping, but don't expect to go shopping with his money. Now, if he offers to buy something for you, you can accept that, but don't expect him to reach for his wallet to pay for the stuff that you touch. Also, if you're in that type of relationship where whenever you touch something, he's supposed to buy it, instead of you being in the situation where you expect him to spend his money, if you want to go shopping and you expect to use his money, show him the respect of asking him if he can pay for your shopping adventure before you leave the house to go to the mall to go spend money. If he's willing to pay for it, you can then show him even more respect and ask him what's the shopping limit, like what's the amount of money that he's allowing you to buy at this point. Now, I know there's a lot of women out there like, I ain't asking him nothing, he better blah 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 blah. But let's be real. If it was me, I would ask you, how much am I allowed to spend? Because I'm not asking you how much can you afford. See, how much can you afford can be taken as an insult. How much am I allowed to spend? Then you're going to look at how much you can afford, and then you'll tell me how much I'm allowed to spend. This works when children talk to their parents. This works when you talk to your parents. This works when you have to ask your friend for a favor to help you pay for something. How much are you willing to give me? How much are you capable of giving me? You know what I'm saying? And this allows them to decide. No matter, they could have $1 million, but if they're only able to give you $100, then they're only able to give you $100. And then you have to be understanding that because that's the amount that they're safely capable of lending to you, that's all you're getting. That you're not going to devalue them and talk bad about them because you were hoping for more, because you deserve none, because you didn't do anything to earn that. But if they're willing to give to you, then appreciate what they've done. Now, when we fail to recognize these behaviors in ourselves, we inadvertently create an environment where our wives feel like they're walking on eggshells, and husbands feel the same way a lot of the times. And we're never knowing when we'll dismiss their concerns or stifle their opinions. But here's the thing. When we take the time to understand and address these patterns, sometimes some things remarkable will happen as a result of that. We have to never forget that men and women often have different communication styles, which can lead to misunderstandings. Women may interpret men's withdrawals as lack of interest, while men may perceive women's emotional expressions as criticism. Some argue that social connections and feminist ideologies may influence women's behavior in relationships, potentially leading to a lack of accountability. Women who seek relationships often desire partners who are equal in engagement, self-aware, and focused on personal growth. But as I've been telling you guys over the past year, is that you cannot be solely focused on personal growth. You have to also be interested in the growth of your partner, because you are in a relationship and you guys have merged two individuals into one whole. And your half and his or her half is the other half of the same whole. And you are supposed to be working towards your partner's success. Think of it like a three-legged relay race. You can only run as fast as the slowest person. So your goal is not to get yourself to the finish line. Your goal is to get your partner to the finish line. You are more successful if you're focusing on the other person's success than what you would be focusing on your own. Likewise, if your partner is focusing on your success, they're more likely to aid you in being more successful in aiding them. And that in turn allows both of you guys to be even more successful. Now, as gender roles have evolved, many women seek more egalitarian partnerships rather than adhering to the traditional feminine roles. Now, while this does cause a little bit of a shift in the old ways, the modern generation is not having as much complaints about it because the men have grown to be more submissive. But when the feminist women's ideologies often desire equal responsibility and opportunities in their relationships, they're challenging these traditional gender roles, where some women are prioritizing individual fulfillment and economic independence over traditional relationship dynamics. Many women are actively working to break free from societal expectations that place men in control of relationships. As couples explore alternatives to that type of relationship dynamic, they may reject those traditional gender roles in favor of arrangements that better suit the individual needs and values of the woman in a relationship. Now, increased access to education and professional advancements has led some women to prioritize their careers over the traditional domestic roles. So it's important to note that not all women reject feminine roles, and preferences vary among individuals, but some women embrace traditional roles, as uh, evidenced by the trade wife movement. And ultimately, successful relationships often involve open communication and finding balance that works for both partners, regardless of traditional gender expectations. Both men and women may struggle with opening up emotionally, which can hinder cooperation and intimacy. Now, one thing that we very rarely discuss is that trauma, abuse, or emotional neglect during childhood can contribute to intimacy disorders and difficulty in forming healthy relationships. Um, and this is going to be both in men and women. So, ladies, you have to realize that not all the time is it just something that happened with the boy's mom that has the boy behaving the way he's behaving. There's also a lot of times something that happened with the girl's mom. People try to say, oh, well, you have daddy issues because the female is acting in a toxic manner. If you're looking at those 80s babies and some of the 90s babies, there are no daddy issues because dads were absent back then. uh, the high divorce rate, high incarceration rate, low income families, the men were absent. So the only issue that the women would have had, that the men would also have when it came to their fathers back in the 80s and 90s and sometimes early 2000s, is that they had no male role models in the house to provide them with that emotional fulfillment from a masculine perspective. But that doesn't necessarily mean that women are typically solely under issues about their father. It's usually more along the lines of issues with their mother, because all the children, men and women are alike, were primarily raised by the women up until like 2010, just about, where more men started stepping up, and the next generation of men who grew up as single fathers started trying harder to be involved in their children's lives so that they could be a positive figure in their child's life, where their children would not be forced to grow up without their dads. So we have to take all these things into account when we look at the emotional instability in the relationships. But in some cases, women may use this emotional manipulation or withhold communication as a means of gaining control in the relationship. This is that silent treatment that we've talked about plenty of times in the past, where some people are going to stomp their feet and cross their arms and refuse to engage you. They may have that temper tantrum in public where they refuse to move. You guys are supposed to be going somewhere, and now you can't go because she's standing in the middle of the street until you submit to her demands, or refusing to get up from the restaurant, or refusing to get off of the bus, or refusing to walk down the side. I would just leave them. I'm not going to lie. I understand that you're upset. I understand that you have a problem, but we can talk about this while we're continuing to move forward, because we're supposed to be moving forward in life together. Having a temper tantrum and shutting down and no longer moving forward does not help anybody. Some people would say that I'm very insensitive about leaving them behind, because if they're going to stomp their feet and refuse to communicate, and we're not working on your problem while you're doing this. So it's not like I'm not trying to fix your problem. I'm recognizing the fact that in this type of dynamic, if you're not willing to work on your own problem, and you're not willing to tell me what your problem is for me to work on your problem, then if you're just going to stand here, I'll come back and check on you in a couple days. If you're still standing here, maybe we can work this scenario out. But I mean, if you really have a problem that you want addressed, you should be able to communicate that, and we should still be able to continue to move forward. But there never should be a situation where your partner, male or female, feels like they have to stop functioning in life in order for you to acknowledge their existence and give them the attention that they need to address the concerns that they have. If they feel like you don't spend enough time with them, then you have to change your schedule. But ladies, if you want your man to spend more time with you, you have to understand that he's going to make less money. And if you guys need that money to maintain a standard of living that you have, you will either have to surrender some of the luxuries in life that he's trying to provide for you in order to have your husband at the house more often, or you're going to have to work harder to maintain that luxury, which also means that you're not going to be available as much. And if your schedule conflicts with his schedule, then guess what? You're back in that same position, but now you're working harder to meet the expectations of your husband being home more often. So remember that. We start to build trust, then we start to foster open communications. And when we do this, we start to create an environment where our wives feel seen, heard, and valued. Ladies, if you do this exact same thing, your husbands will feel the same way. You want transparency. Women are going to have to start behaving like Catholic priests in the magnitude of open confessions with no consequence for the confession. Meaning that if you want open transparency, if he says that he did something he had no business doing, the only thing you're supposed to say is, okay, now let's work on fixing it. He come to you with one of them Usher let it burn situations, sweetheart. You're gonna babysit the child. Don't argue with him. Don't cause no conflict. He come with you with some of that baby boy stuff where he was in a drive-by and somebody then got and now the police look. You're gonna help him stash out somewhere. You know, if he did something he ain't had no business doing, and now Johnny Law is knocking on the door looking for him, he ain't here, even though he hidden in the basement up underneath some boxes somewhere. You're not gonna condemn him for whatever it is that he's telling you, because if you are doing full transparency, then you cannot judge the information that he's giving you. You understand? They will confide in you more if they're not being judged for the information that they're telling you. Women and men both behave the same way about this, but men are going to more likely suppress what they are going through if you judge them the first time. So you can never judge him. I'm not saying that you can't hold him accountable for what he did that he's not supposed to do. I'm saying that you're not supposed to judge him during the confessional. He recognizes that he screwed up. That's all it is. Your decision-making process right now is not to chastise him for what he has done. It is for you to decide, are you going to stick with him for the long haul because this is the worst part, or are you going to leave him and move on and start over in your relationships? It is not rocket science, but it does require a willingness to confront our own shortcomings and biases. So I've seen it in my own relationships, and I've seen it in the relationships of those around me. The moment we take responsibility for our actions, the moment we start to listen actively, and the moment we acknowledge our wives and our husbands' feelings and concerns, that's when the dynamic of that relationship starts to shift. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to grow and learn, which is one of the reasons why I tell women all the time, there's no possible way that every woman on the face of the earth is a 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, if everybody's a 10, then nobody's a 10. And that's logic. But let's be real. On a scale from 1 to 10, best woman on the face of the earth is a 9, 9.5 at best. And why is that? Because every person on the face of this earth has a flaw, has multiple flaws that they recognize in themselves. Everybody on the face of this earth has something about them that somebody else doesn't like. And everybody on the face of this earth can recognize that some of those things they're not willing to change. Still character flaws that you're not willing to change, which means that you are not perfect. You are just ideal for the person that is accepting you for who you are and how you behave. So you're not a 10. It's not possible for any woman to be a 10. It's not possible for any man to be a 10. Now, you can be a 10 out of 10 of my list. You can be perfect for my list where you exceed my expectations. But the person standing next to me, you may not meet any of their expectations. And between the two of us, you wouldn't be averaging a 10. You'd be averaging a 5 between the two of us. So nobody can be all around a 10 for the average individual, that because it's not how you rate yourself. It is how you believe your society would rate you. Think about that. When next time somebody asks you, do you think you're a 10? It's not, do you think that you are a 10 based on your standards? It is, do you think that your society would rate you as a 10? Do you think that the people that talk to you on a regular basis would rate you as a 10? Do you think that the people that engage you day-to-day activities would rate you as a 10? If you believe that there's at least one person that would say that you're less than a 10, you're not a 10. So since I've already been the first person, if you believe that there's one more person that's not on this podcast that would rate you less than a 10, then you're not a 10. All right. Let's just put it like that. And the other thing is that because if everybody understands that they have room to grow, there's things about themselves that they don't like. There's things about themselves that they want to improve. No matter how great they've become, there are things about themselves that they want to improve. As a result, because you know that you have self-improvement to do, you are not perfect. You are not a 10. All of that puts you back into the understanding that since nobody is perfect, you have to have reasonable acceptance of the imperfections of your partner. And that's where I was going with that, with the long dynamic. That since you know you are not perfect, you have to have more empathy to the imperfection of the partner that you are in a relationship with, that you are socializing with, that you are encountering and engaging on a regular basis. So the answer to the question is, do husbands do something wrong that makes their wives refuse to cooperate? The answer is often yes. We do things that women don't like that make women shut down. It is clear, but it's not a fatal flaw. It's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to build stronger, more resilient relationships. And it is definitely worth looking into. But also, if you guys remember that you're standing on your non-negotiable expectations for behavior, ladies, when a man is not doing the things that you want him to do, instead of you shutting down, have an intervention. Sit him down when he's not preoccupied by his video games, when he's not preoccupied by his friends and the family and the kids and work, and sit there with him one-on-one so that you're not putting him on the spot and embarrassing him in front of other people. Because anybody, male or female, when they feel like you are putting them on the spot and embarrassing them in front of other people, they will act irrationally. So you will not achieve your goals with rectifying your complaints. You have to be able to pull them aside, and you have to be able to explain to them that you have a problem that needs to be addressed, that if they work with you, you'll work with them. If they do what you ask them to do, you will do what they ask you to do within reason. And as long as you keep your expectations within reason, you knew when you got with me what I was capable of. Because of that, your expectations of what I should do and what I should be should not be gauged much higher than what you know I am capable of. Now, what I am capable of and what I am doing do not have to be on the same level, because I could be doing far less than what I'm capable of. I could be doing far more than what I know I'm capable of. But if you know that I'm capable of doing far less than what I'm doing, then you should not set the bar far above my capabilities, because this showing out up here, that's limited. Go back down to my capabilities and you're going to feel under appreciated. But if you know where my standards are, where my capabilities are, and your expectations are in line with that or a little under that, then you understand that you're setting the bar at an achievable level. And this works for both men and women. So you get a girl that don't cook, you ain't expecting her to cook. You want a girl that cook, you looking at her in the kitchen trying to see what she can whip up. You looking for a girl that clean at the house. You go into her house and see how clean her house is. If her house got stuff thrown all over the place, she ain't cleaning your house. You just got to understand. So that does not mean that just because you get into a relationship, she goes from being a slob to being Martha freaking Stewart with all kinds of hood decor and got the house looking like cribs. No. If she got stuff thrown all over the place where the house isn't dirty, it's just disorganized, then your house is going to be disorganized too. Now you go to her house and everything's got its place, neat freak. You can white glove the countertop and not get any dirt on your finger. Bro, you're going to have to tighten up, because not only is she going to keep your house spotless, she's going to be strict about you making messes. You got people that have this OCD compulsionary expectation where he or she is going to want the house to be a certain level of clean, and you are going to have to put extra effort into meeting those expectations. If you can't, before you get too involved in this relationship, if that is not your level, before you get too involved in this relationship, you need to rethink your position. Look, and it's not just about cooking and cleaning and stuff to that effect. Think about personal hobbies. If you're dating somebody who goes to the gym 7 days a week, they call them gym rats. You're an active person, an overly active person that likes to go biking and hiking and stuff to that, and you're a couch potato, you're not going to meet those adventurous expectations on a regular basis. You might go to the gym once a year. You might go to the gym 5 times out of the year, but you're not going every day. So if your partner gets you to go to the gym for 2 weeks straight, you're not going to the gym for another 2 years. You're not going to be able to keep that up, because that's not who you are. If you're not a hiker, you're going to complain on the hike, which is going to devalue the hike for the person who loves to hike. If you're not a biker, you're going to be complaining on a bike ride because you are not a active person like that. But likewise, you have to understand that your partner, being an overly active person, is going to be bored sitting on a couch with you on a regular basis. So if you can't find an equal medium, sit on the couch some of the time and have them sit on the couch with you some of the time, but then go off and do some active activities that is a change of pace for you, but you're not doing it all the time. This gives you the ability to be acknowledged and recognized for your habits and passions and positions, and recognizing your standards, your capabilities, while understanding that you're going to do the same with reciprocating for your partner. When we start taking these things into consideration, we're less likely to be in a relationship where our partner is going to shut down. We're less likely to be in a scenario where our girlfriend or our wife is going to stop reacting to our existence because she's pissed off that she's not satisfied with what she expected us to do, because we should have taken the time to put our expectations on the table. Because if you start the relationship from both sides of the fence, where both the man and the woman is putting their non-negotiable expectations for behavior on the table, and accompany that with your negotiable expectations as well, you guys can negotiate down meeting each other's expectations, where you are no longer in a position where you feel mistreated, unsatisfied, or abused. Now, that is the full totality of the information that we've got for you guys today. I want to appreciate you guys for coming to the show. If you've ever struggled with getting your wife to cooperate, I want you guys to share your experience with us in a comment below. Ladies, if you ever had a problem with getting your husbands to cooperate, I expect you guys to put your comments in the comments down below, because sometimes men are non-cooperational. I got some tips and tricks for y'all about aiding yourselves with success with getting your men to cooperate, but it really depends on the situation and what's got him not cooperating, because a lot of times a man will stop cooperating because he didn't feel appreciated the last time he tried. And then you got a lot of times where the man's got so much stuff on his plate, he just doesn't have enough time to do anything else. So you got to understand that as well. So if you want to learn more about improving communication in your relationships, you want to make sure that you check out the videos that we've got tomorrow. And we also are going to have another video, apparently, the 5 communication mistakes that can destroy a marriage. So we're going to be talking about that coming soon. So I want you guys to make sure that you pay attention to what we've got coming on a podcast. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Throughout the week, we've got different topics coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about why the women are choosing to not behave as wife material. So we got a new topic coming up for tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of discussions going on. In addition to a lot of the trends that's happening, we're going to be talking about some of those trends in business, finance, politics, and home social interaction. So we're going to be talking about that coming soon. So make sure that you guys, as I said before, hit that like and subscribe. Sunday is going to be our members only show, where we're going to be doing some reactions to some of the questions and comments that the fans give to the podcast. So I encourage you guys that, if you've ever been in a situation where your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, or your wife has shut down in your relationship, or they stop performing to your expectations, feel free to throw that information into the comment section, because we'll be able to address those and try to give you guys some abilities to understand your partner's point of view, as well as ways to help you guys overcome the shortcomings of your partner's lack of participation. At no point in time am I going to tell you, oh, they're garbage, get rid of them. That's not true. Fact is that they're just misunderstood, and you just need to put forth effort into understanding them, because if you put forth the effort into understanding your partner, more often than not, the relationship is salvageable, and you can find a reasonable outcome for your partner's behavior patterns, and find change and improvement in your relationship, which those 25 and 30 year long relationships only last 25 and 30 years long because you guys work through the differences. You don't just fall apart. But the reason why the average dating relationship and marital relationship these days is lasting 17 weeks, which is approximately like 17 weeks. You're looking at like 1 year, 5 months, and 6 days, really, is what they're statistically calculating is the average relationship today. The average relationship, meaning that if you're looking at less than a year and a half, is the average relationship. In 10 years, you would have been in 5 relationships, 5 different quote unquote long-term relationships, where on average your relationship would be on and off 2 years, where you guys will break up and then make up, and overall the total span of your relationship would have been 24 months, where 6 months out of that y'all were broken up 3 or 4 times in your relationship. That's not a healthy relationship. You guys have to be able to find a way to navigate through your issues and communicate with one another in a more effective fashion, so that you guys can be heard and recognized and understood. And if you are heard, recognized, and understood, then you will be able to push the issues that are needed to be pushed in a positive fashion. You guys will also be able to put yourselves in the type of position in your relationships where your relationships can be more successful and improve. And then you guys will be able to grow together for your own personal development. Uh, that's all I got for you guys today. I want you guys to make sure again that you guys like and subscribe. On my way out, I want to tell you guys, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. I really appreciate you fellas for showing up on the podcast, because you guys are making us what we are today. Red Boyd, I see you over there on Twitch. We really appreciate you. Likewise, I definitely want to give a special shout out to the top 40 that's been showing us love on a regular basis on the podcast, because you guys have been you guys have been there for a long haul showing us support. So I'm gonna throw you guys up there on the screen right now. I really appreciate you guys. And in addition to that, Higher Ground, we've crossed over. We're into month 2, so we're just finishing up the first quarter of the song going live in December. And as we are wrapping up the first quarter, we're going to be able to tell you guys how well the song did over the past 90 days. And it is our opening and closing songs for the podcast. So take a listen to that before and after the show. We also have the Higher Ground song in the comments section, in the description section. So if you take a look in the description section, you'll be able to see links to it for YouTube, and where you can listen to it for free. Or if you want to download the songs, you have links to Amazon Prime, where you guys can download it to your cell phones and have it when your cell phone is not receiving internet service. Special shout out to some of those countries around the world before we walk ourselves out of the door. Russia, Vietnam, United Kingdom, India, Ukraine, Germany, Australia, South Africa, Philippines, Romania. Big shout out to Romania. Red Voids in Romania. Ami81 in Brazil. Special shout out to you guys. The Philippines, Indonesia. Even though Canada is hitting us with those tariffs, special shout out to you, because y'all are showing us some love. And special shout out to Mexico for also showing us some love, because even though they're taxing each other across the globe massively right now, the airwaves are free, so we're not paying tariffs to bring you guys quality information that you can improve and better yourselves with. So stay tuned, because Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday we're going to be giving you guys more updates as to what's going on in business and finance and politics in our society. And Thursday through Sunday we're going to be helping you guys with your social improvement and your relationship improvement and your self improvement. I'm your host Xander for This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock California time, as California continues to burn to the ground. Thank you for coming to the show. Y'all have a good night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no you.